Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, even on the best of days, family is, well, let's face it, complex. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to assume that you do because you're listening right now. You can subscribe to the podcast and give us one of those big 5-star ratings. You can find us basically wherever you get your podcasts. We're over at Amazon, Spotify, Apple, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram. Either at In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I say this a lot, but it's true, it's the most important, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit on this episode, on this very special episode. We got a good one. We're diving into the film Donkeyhead. We did that a little bit previously with our episode with one of its stars, Kim Coates. But now we are talking with the writer, director, and star, one Agam Darshi, who is, she's a multi-hyphenate in many ways, but she's a fantastic filmmaker and a fantastic person to talk to. She did a great job with this story, and it's basically the story of Mona, who is played by Darshi herself. She's a failed writer, but she carves out a life of isolation for herself while looking after her ailing Sikh father. But when he has a debilitating stroke, her three successful siblings show up on her doorstep, determined to take control of the situation and kind of also her life. It's one of those family stories that we can all really, really relate to. It is in theaters now. I believe it is playing at the Cineplex in Dundas. For anybody in Toronto, it's playing in several other cities as well, and rolling out over the next couple of weeks across Canada to various theaters. So please check your local listings. But this is such a fantastic example of not just Canadian filmmaking, but sort of the universality that has become Canadian filmmaking. And it's diverse, it's representative, but it's honest, and it's true. It's not trying to sort of gloss over anything or sugarcoat anything. It's telling a very humanistic and a very real story that anybody across culture lines, gender lines, boundary lines can absolutely relate to. And that's one of the magic things of storytelling. But we talked with Agam about sort of the origins for the story and just getting it made and making sure she shot and told the story in Regina, where she's from, and so very much more. But when you get a chance, please go check out Donkeyhead in a theater near you. But first off, enjoy our talk with Agam because, quite frankly, it's a good one.
Well, obviously, first off, just thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate
it. Of course. Thank you. Thanks for...
Now, congrats on the movie. I absolutely loved it. I guess my first question is just walk me through the origins on your end. Like, why this story, why this was going to be a feature for you, sort of so on and so forth.
Yeah, I started writing it a long time ago, off and on. And I think at the beginning, I just wanted to write a simple film that could be shot in like really fast, took place in one day, that was about a family of 4 siblings. That's it. And I wanted to play one of the characters. So that was basically my own selfish reason of just like making this. And then over time, I got older and life experience, and then I submitted it to a lab at Whistler Film Festival, and that was the first time that I had ever had mentorship as a writer, and was able to really kind of dig deep into the story and into these characters and bring so much more of my own life to this. And I think that's really when things like solidified and really really became a film about heart and what's at stake and all of that.
Was there a moment where you regretted being not just the director, the writer, but also the star?
Was there a moment, sorry?
When you directed, sort of taking on the triple role of writing, directing, and being in front of the camera?
You know what? So I never wanted to direct this. I knew I wanted to direct
Right.
eventually, but it wasn't going to be this film. I wanted to act in it. I was having just a really hard time finding the right director. And it was partly because the script was so near and dear to me that it was like I was being very precious about who I wanted to hand it over to. And then a mentor friend of mine, Robert Cuffley, who is also one of the producers on this, he said to me, he's like, Agam, you need to direct this film and I can help you. And I'm like, wait, but I want to be an actor in it as well. And he's like, no, you can do both. And I'll help mentor you through it. And so it was really a wonderful, like, process, because I felt like I did feel a little bit unstable at first, being like, how do I do this? But after acting for as long as I have been, there's a lot that I've absorbed, and there's a lot that I've seen. There's great directors I've worked with and really bad directors, and I've learned from both of them. And so I was able to bring a lot more to the role of a director than I expected myself to. And it was really like, there's something about just working so hard and the high of working that hard that feels great. And then you crash at the end of it and you sort of miss it. It's a weird, like...
It's a weird drug, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a weird drug.
No, I mean, I think something about this film which really connected for me was just sort of the universality of it. Because, I mean, obviously, and I mean, I think it was the line from your character of just, I don't want to be trapped. And I mean, basically trapped by my own family. And I mean, as much as this is a very culturally specific story, this is a universal family story. How important was it for you to sort of find that through line and not make it a story about X kind of family, but make it a story about family?
I mean, that was always the intention, was to make it about family. I did not want to, like, I knew that they were going to be South Asian, but at like the very first draft of this, it was them over a Christmas dinner, and it had nothing to do with religion or with the traditions of being Sikh Punjabi. That came through later. And at first I was very hesitant with how much of that I brought in, but then when I just had to like sit with it and be like, okay, well, what's the most honest way to tell the story, then the answers were kind of there. And I think the more specific you are, the more universal things are, like whether I've had someone who is Jewish who watched it and they're like, oh yeah, we do the same thing. And like, as Jews, like in terms of when somebody is dying or passing, or the same kind of we have the same traditions. And so it didn't really worry me once I had made that decision, because even as an actor, you just know, like, the more specific you are, the more universal it's going to be. And so I felt like I just knew that kind of in my bones. And some of my favorite films, like I love My Big Fat Greek Wedding, when that came out, it was so great. And it's like, oh, that's my family. You had all these like Italians and South Asians basically saying, yeah, that's my family, and so it didn't really worry me too much.
And I mean, at the end of the day, this really is a humanistic story. And I mean, I think the line that really sealed it for me was just early on with Kim's character. It's like, oh, we're making love. It's like, no, we're not. We're fucking. There's a difference. It allows it to feel sort of gritty and more emotional and very much more humanistic, and not trying to sort of give us sort of this glossy idea of being a person.
Yeah. I'm glad you picked that up. I mean, relationships are so complicated.
Right. Yeah.
And she says one thing, but really she wants it to be more than that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so fascinating about human beings, right? We do that all the time. We kind of put these guards up, and it's like, no, it's just like, this is all it is, when really underneath it's like, I want you to love me, here's my heart. And so I think that's kind of a lot of what Mona does.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit just about casting for something like this, because I mean, obviously you're going to be representative, you want everything to be right, but you want the right actors at the same time. If it's the wrong people in the wrong roles, it's not going to work. You have to have performers who sort of understand the tenor of the story that you want to tell.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we have so many great actors in this country. Stephen Lobo is somebody that I had worked with a long time ago. I knew his work, and I knew that I wanted him to be a part of this. His dad's from Goa and his mom's Iranian, and so he's South Asian, but he knows nothing. He knew nothing about what it is to be Sikh Punjabi and wearing a turban. And I actually wasn't even sure if I wanted him to play Parm at the beginning, but he really gravitated towards that role. And so when that decision was made, he kind of went at it with like all force and like sent me a million emails and asked a million questions. And I pointed him in all these directions, and he would come over to my parents' house so that my mom could learn how to wrap the right turban over his head. Like he would come like weekend after weekend. And it was just, those are the kind of actors that I wanted to work with, is people who would really own this and kind of understand the responsibility in some ways, even though I don't know if we knew that we had a responsibility. Felt like there was something, like he felt like he had a real responsibility to playing this role, especially in a time when we're constantly being told like you have to cast according to the exact ethnicity and exact culture. It doesn't really make sense, because yes, you want to get, I did look at Sikh Punjabi men with turbans for that role. But at the end of the day, I also wanted someone who just felt really grounded and really human, and who was really smart and cerebral. And Stephen is all of those things, so I just went with the essence of the character. And if I found an actor that really matched it, I knew that was a win.
For sure. No, yeah, I think you've done that and then some here, because I mean, again, this felt so very human and real, and it was trying to tell a very honest story. I mean, even by location, because I mean, had this been set in Toronto or Vancouver or one of those kind of suburbs of there, it would have felt a little more stereotypical. How important was it for you to sort of make this very truly sort of a Canadian immigrant story? Because, there are Canadian immigrants everywhere all across our country, not necessarily in the city centers.
Absolutely. And actually, Regina has like a really high immigration rate, because I think it's easier to get your immigration status or something like that in Regina. So it was kind of interesting. So this film was supposed to be set in Calgary. That's where I went to high school and university. And so I wanted it there. But just due to budgetary reasons and stuff, we ended up setting it in Regina. And it makes so much more sense. I personally love Regina. I love the people there. I've worked there before, but Regina is one of those cities that never really grows. People are born and then they leave, and it doesn't really have a lot, in terms of culture or whatever. It's a really like factory, like blue collar kind of place. And it's not as pretty as some of the other cities in Canada. And I love that, because I think it's basically reflects who Mona is. She's just like neither here nor there, and she's just, she's tough and she's rough, and she's rough around the edges. And I think it was just such a great reflection of who she was. And yeah, I think it brought a lot of specificity to the character. And I think also, like, filming in Canada, we do tend to want to make everything look really beautiful. We have the mountains,
right.
And it was so nice to just not do that. Even though I think the movie's beautiful. I think my DP did an incredible job, and you see some really beautiful things, but I think there's beauty in like that ugliness of, the factories and the brick houses and, the ugly snow. Like, I think all of that is something that as Canadians, we know.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, going down the highway, seeing that A&W, and then there's sort of being spaces in between. I mean, it's a very relatable visual that we can sort of connect to, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, this is a bit of a silly question, but it's one I always like to ask. But I mean, in watching your film, I mean, again, I loved just the innate honesty I felt in the story. And I'm kind of curious, what are the films and what are the stories that got you into this business in the first place?
Oh, that's a good question. That got me into this business. I feel like my answer is not sophisticated, but
no, tell it. Come on, now I want to hear it. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, please.
You know, I have a really distinct memory of being like 3 and going to a drive-in with my parents
Yeah.
and seeing The Never-Ending Story.
I love it. Okay. No, you and I are now best friends. I love that. I love that answer.
I just like I never seen like it was just I don't know if that's what made me want to be an actor, but it just made me really love story because I
Right.
saw something visual that was like, there's this beautiful dog that can fly with these
Mm,
ears. Like it was just so good. And I remember going back there, I think it was like a few weeks later with my parents when they were watching a different film, and I could watch The Never Ending Story on another screen without sound. And I was
right.
watching the whole film again. I just love The Never Ending Story. And I think that kind of magic uh, has always just been so exciting to me and been something that I've always tried to, I don't know, I like strive for. I guess like I've, you know, yeah, I love that film. And I just remember it being like a very specific sort of moment about storytelling that I really felt very special to me.
I mean, I love anybody who always has that moment of wanting to ride on the back of that dog because we were all there. I mean, it's transformative for so many people, and I love that
Oh my
moment.
God. Yes. Yeah. Like, and yeah, because you can see that in storybooks, but to actually have seen that like on a screen as a little
Yeah.
child, it's just like, wow, like the world is like anything's possible, you know?
Now, I mean, just to start putting a bow on this, as your film is now sort of heading out into the world for more audiences to see, I'm kind of curious. I mean, not just one, like what you hope audiences take away from it and all that kind of thing, but for you as an actor and obviously now as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, I'm kind of curious if there's anything maybe at the end of this process now that you didn't expect to learn sort of from the beginning of it. Because I mean, obviously, directing a film takes a village and it's such a huge undertaking. Is there anything sort of after the fact that you're going to take away into sort of future projects that you work on?
Yeah. I mean, I knew it kind of instinctively, and I fought for it. And I now know it like in my bones that you can't make a good film in 12 days. Like you need more days. And we're at a point in like media and filmmaking where it's like, yeah, I made this film in 12 days. Yeah, I made this film in like, 14 days. And it's like, I don't think that creates art. Like I do think that art takes time, and it might mean that you have less fancy stuff or you have less names or whatever. But I really just believe in having more days to make a film if you really want something beautiful. Maybe that'll change over time, but I know for the next one as well, I'm going to fight for that. And it's just you know what's interesting actually. It was my producer Anand Vermaya. We were trying to figure out how to like, budget always is an issue,
For sure.
and one of the things that's so easy to sort of cut is like, do we really need a production designer? Like, is that really gonna bring something, or is it just something that we can just kind of do ourselves? Like, like, and Anand was the one who was like, no, I really think that we need to get this woman named Marianne Wehack from Toronto to come and work on this film. Like, I think that's money well spent. And I was like, I know she was good, but I wasn't sure if that's where the money should be going. And it was the best idea because she transformed that house and she turned it into a home, into the
Sure.
Gooman home. And she knew about the details and the colors, and she worked so well with Leo. And I would definitely like, I see now where money should go and perhaps where we can kind of thin it out a little.
No, and I mean that makes perfect sense because I mean at the end of the day, I mean as much as we're in a business where you're creating a commodity, a product, when it's art, it transcends that. And I think you've done that. And you've made a real genuine story that I absolutely soaked up from beginning to end. I absolutely loved, and I can't wait to see what's next. And again, thank you so much for the time today. This was absolutely fantastic talk. And again, congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.